Welcome back to our channel. In 2005, the Lincoln Cent was in its 96th year of production, still bearing the iconic bust of the 16th president on the obverse, just as it had since 1909. While the nation turned its attention to digital progress and international affairs, a small but significant relic of Americana continued to slide unnoticed from the presses of the U.S. Mint. At first glance, the 2005 1-cent penny seemed unremarkable copper-plated zinc, as it had been since 1982, with no major changes to the design. Coins like these were struck by the billions, flowing through vending machines and pockets without a second thought. Yet somewhere, nestled in the routine of automated production, an anomaly emerged. It was never meant to be special. That's what made its story so compelling. The Mint's presses are machines of precision, orchestrated with an almost surgical level of control. But even the most reliable machines are not immune to the unpredictable. Somewhere in the Denver Mint, while countless other cents were being stamped, one batch bore a mark of imperfection. A seemingly minor disruption in the coining process, unnoticed at first, began to turn up in a small number of 2005 pennies. Most who held one would never know the difference. Only the trained eye, the hand of someone tuned to subtlety, could catch what others missed. He didn't expect to find anything. That was the truth. A retired postal worker, Howard Ellison, had taken up coin collecting to pass the time after a knee surgery left him housebound. He scoured rolls from the bank out of curiosity, never hoping for much more than filling gaps in his albums. But on an unseasonably warm afternoon in late March, Howard opened a roll of freshly minted 2005 pennies and felt something stir. At first, it was just a glimmer, something slightly off in the way Lincoln's profile met the rim. Howard adjusted his magnifier, eyes narrowing. The T in Liberty looked soft, almost ghost-like. He compared it with the others. The anomaly appeared again. And again. Slight variances, but the same distortion. A pang of adrenaline sharpened his focus. He wasn't imagining things. The edges of the letters were muddled, as though smeared at the moment of impact. The date 2005 was crisp, but certain coins bore a distinct doubling in "In God We Trust," almost like a shadow behind the words. Was it a strike-through? A die clash? Howard couldn't be sure. But he knew it wasn't damage. This wasn't the kind of wear that came from a lifetime in circulation. These coins were fresh direct from the mint roll. He turned to online forums, cautiously at first. Posts were sparse. No mention of the error. Then came a reply, almost dismissive. Probably machine doubling. Common. But Howard had seen machine doubling before. This wasn't that. It had depth. Character. Something organic in its imperfection. Weeks passed. Then months. Finally, someone else posted a similar image. Another collector from Missouri described the same ghosted liberty and doubling in the motto. They compared notes, and the pattern grew clearer. All were Denver Mint strikes. All were copper-plated zinc. The community, still skeptical, labeled it a minor anomaly, interesting, but not significant. But a small group of collectors began watching 2005 pennies more closely, with growing curiosity. The whispers began. Not just about the error, but its possible cause. A deteriorated die, some suggested. Others pointed to a misaligned hubbing process during die creation, a rare, but not unheard of occurrence. What made it peculiar was the consistency across a subset of coins, suggesting that this wasn't just a one-off fluke, but something sustained over a short production window. Then, in early 2007, a listing appeared on an auction site. 2005 Lincoln Cent with prominent doubling, rare error, uncirculated. The final hammer price? Just $12. Modest. Yet it stirred something. Not in the mainstream market, but in the quiet corners of numismatics, where patience and knowledge reward those who see the long game. More examples surfaced, and slowly, the price crept up. $18, then $24. Small numbers, but each sale added a brushstroke to a larger picture forming. By 2010, coin dealers started noting the error in their catalogs, designating it as a double die obverse variant, though disagreement over the exact classification persisted. Was it true hub doubling, or a complex hybrid of strike issues? Experts debated. Some called it an optical illusion, others called it the most underappreciated double die of the decade. But the truth, as is often the case with errors, lay in its scarcity, not too rare to vanish, but rare enough to command attention. Howard kept his best specimen. He'd labeled it number 1 and stored it in an airtight case. It was never about the money for him, at least not at first. But even he couldn't help but notice the rising demand. By 2013, pristine examples with full luster and strong doubling fetched over $100 at auction. CoinWorld ran a short article, giving it a footnote in the Lincoln Cent legacy. Howard clipped it and added it to his binder, more amused than impressed. What turned amusement into awe came one fall evening when a new collector, trying to assemble a complete Lincoln error set, offered him $600 for his coin. Howard declined. Not out of stubbornness, but intuition. He felt something shifting in the hobby, a renewed interest in modern cent errors, especially those overlooked in their time. It wasn't long before the twist emerged, unexpected, almost poetic in its timing. A batch of uncirculated rolls surfaced in a storage unit auction in Colorado. Buried among forgotten baseball cards and faded furniture were 3 mint rolls of 2005 cents. The seller listed them online, unaware of the contained anomaly. A savvy bidder, known in forums only as Copper Ghost, won the lot for under $40. What followed would change the coin's status forever. From those rolls came 6 near-gem specimens, each showing the same double die characteristics, but with even crisper delineation than previously recorded. This was the proof researchers had long hoped for, confirmation that a short run of dies had produced a true double die, not mechanical doubling, with distinguishable design layering. News spread rapidly. Numismatic blogs lit up. The value climbed overnight, with one of Copper Ghost's coins selling for $2,100 in a private sale to an East Coast collector. Suddenly, every dealer with a 2005 penny in stock began inspecting their inventory. Coin shows buzzed with a newfound excitement. The error had graduated from curiosity to legitimate investment. Slabbed and graded examples followed. PCGS certified the first MS66 specimen in early 2016, labeling it 2005 D1C DDO FS101. The FS designation, short for 5S Stanton, a recognized error numbering system, gave it institutional legitimacy. Prices soared again. The following year, a bidding war at a Kansas City coin show resulted in a record-breaking $6,500 sale. The winning bidder, a museum curator with a passion for minting mishaps, declared it one of the most underappreciated doubling errors in modern coinage. Still, the story had another layer to unfold. In 2018, a metallurgical analysis revealed a subtle deviation in the composition of certain 2005 D blanks used in the early production months. Though still within federal tolerance, these blanks had slightly lower copper coating thickness, resulting in a marginally different reflective surface under certain lighting, making the doubling appear more dramatic on specific coins. The phenomenon wasn't universal, but it was traceable. A scientific quirk layered atop a mechanical misstep. This meant that only a narrow group of errors exhibited both the doubling and the enhanced visibility caused by the copper variance. Those became known as the ghost doublers, a name coined in a podcast by a Texas collector who described the eerie, almost spectral appearance of the affected motto and date. From a market standpoint, the ghost doublers were the elite tier. By 2020, fewer than 30 had been confirmed. Grading companies began differentiating them with a subtle notation. The result? Astronomical valuations. One sold for $9,750 on a live-streamed auction. Another, owned by Copper Ghost himself, was insured for $12,000. Howard, now in his late 70s, watched with bemused satisfaction. He still kept number 1, though he was offered $8,500 for it, after it was graded MS-65. For him, it was more than a coin. It was the thrill of discovery, the quiet validation of a hunch no one believed at first. The broader market responded in kind. Even standard 2005 cents gained attention, with many hopefuls searching rolls for a glimpse of doubling. Some found success. Others found only disappointment. But the hunt was alive again, driven by the coin's unpredictable journey. And perhaps that's what gives the 2005 double die penny its magic. It wasn't born into prestige or designed for rarity. It emerged in silence, unnoticed amid billions, and whispered its way into legend, not with a bang, but with a collector's whisper, a doubter's mistake, and a twist of metallurgy hidden in plain sight. The year was 2012. In the world of numismatics, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The Lincoln cent, long a staple of American coinage since 1909, continued to roll off the presses in tremendous numbers. Over 5 billion pennies were minted that year, 3.1 billion in Philadelphia, and another 2.9 billion in Denver. Their design was familiar, almost mundane to the average eye. On the obverse, the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln gazed steadily across time. The reverse bore the Union Shield, a symbol of national unity introduced in 2010. These were the everyday coins jingling in pockets, dropped in vending machines, lost under couch cushions. But inside the sterile walls of the U.S. Mint, the tiniest miscalculation went unnoticed by machines, and men can ripple into an echo that resonates across decades. It wasn't immediately clear, not even to the seasoned eyes working quality control, that something had gone slightly, almost imperceptibly wrong. The first whispers began among amateur collectors. A few, scattered across different states, noticed slight abnormalities, barely visible raised marks near the edge of the coin, strange bulges that weren't present on others, or misaligned designs that deviated just slightly from the norm. It was subtle, but for those who've studied thousands of coins, subtle can speak volumes. Daniel Rutherford had been collecting coins since he was 11. Now in his late 30s, he had developed a sixth sense and uncanny ability to detect when something wasn't right. It started on a late autumn evening. Daniel sat under a warm desk lamp. A fresh roll of 2012 pennies he requested from the bank spread before him. It was a ritual. He'd order bulk rolls and sift through them, searching for varieties, die cracks, double dies, anything of interest. At first, they all looked the same: clean strikes, consistent coloration, the standard copper-plated zinc appearance. But then, halfway through the roll, he stopped. One coin had a pronounced rim cut near the "I God We Trust" inscription. The rim rose in an uneven, swollen mass, obscuring part of the lettering. Daniel leaned in. The cut was not damage from wear or tampering. It was part of the coin, struck into it at birth. He could feel his pulse quicken. He examined the reverse. Everything else was normal. The shield was properly centered. The fields were clean. No signs of post-mint contact. This wasn't just a minor die chip. This was a full-fledged retained die break near the rim. A mint error. And not one he'd seen recorded in any recent mint publications. He posted about it in a coin forum. Responses were mixed. Some dismissed it. Others asked for better photos. A few reached out privately, hoping to examine it in hand. Within weeks, Daniel discovered he wasn't alone. Other collectors reported similar errors, some rim cuts, others showing partial collar strikes where the rim looked crushed or uneven. One collector from Ohio described a coin that appeared slightly broader, as if stretched outward, a classic sign of a broad strike. Word spread quickly through online communities, and then to more formal circles. Coin World and Numismatic News began to cover the anomalies. The Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, confirmed the existence of several variants: 2012 cents with retained die breaks, broad strikes, partial collars, and even off-center strikes. While individually not unheard of, the concentration of these errors in 2012 cents suggested a systemic lapse in mint equipment calibration or maintenance. As more examples came to light, so too did the bidding wars. Initially, collectors exchanged error coins casually, often selling them for $15 or $20, just enough to buy another few rolls. But prices began creeping upward. One 2012 penny with a dramatic rim cut and minimal contact mark sold on eBay for $86. Another, with a deep collar error, sold privately for $140. By 2020, some of the more dramatic examples crossed into triple digits regularly. Then came the turning point. In early 2021, a 2012 penny appeared at a regional coin show in St. Louis. It was housed in a protective slab, certified MS65 by NGC. But what made it extraordinary was the combination of two rare features: a strong broad strike and a die cap. The coin had been struck more than once while the die cap remained in place, resulting in a distorted, concave shape with deep impressions and ghosted design elements. It looked almost melted, surreal in its texture and curves. There was no post-mint damage, just pure mint-born anomaly. Collectors circled like hawks. It changed hands twice over the weekend, finally selling for $1,200 to a dealer with a known interest in Lincoln cents. That sale rippled across the community. It wasn't just the visual drama of the error, it was that it came from an otherwise unremarkable year. A modern coin. A penny. Suddenly, 2012 pennies were no longer dismissed as mere change. They were potential treasure. The market began to shift. Numismatists who had once ignored 2012 rolls began requesting them from banks. eBay listings for 2012 penny error began multiplying. Some were legitimate verified cut breaks or partial collars. Others, sadly, were misleading. Coins damaged after minting, passed off as rarities. The field became chaotic, buzzing with excitement and confusion. Daniel remained at the center of it. He became something of a folk hero in his online groups. The St. Louis cap coin, as it came to be called, was featured in a digital article, and Daniel was quoted extensively. But he kept his collection close, refusing to sell the first error penny he found. To him, it wasn't just about value. It was the thrill of discovery, the mystery, the feeling of uncovering something others had overlooked. And then, another twist. In 2022, a collector from Arizona brought forward a coin with a ghosted design. Lincoln's bust was nearly absent, and the obverse was remarkably smooth, as though the coin had been struck on a planchet intended for a foreign denomination. But upon analysis, the metal composition was identical to a standard 2012 cent. It hadn't been struck on the wrong blank, it had been subjected to extreme die fatigue. The coin had been struck with a heavily worn die, one so degraded that it could barely transfer the design. That coin sold for $720 at auction. Its existence raised new questions. How many degraded dies were used in 2012? Why had quality control missed them? Was the sheer volume of production overwhelming mint oversight? And then came the forensic approach. Numismatists began comparing known 2012 errors, cross-referencing their locations, looking for patterns. It emerged that many of the most significant errors, broad strikes, rim cuts, die caps, came from the Denver Mint. Speculation grew that a specific batch of dies, perhaps a shipment in late summer of 2012, had been compromised or inadequately hardened. This theory gave rise to targeted collecting. People began looking specifically for late 2012 pennies, seeking date stamp variations that could correspond to the suspected batch. Coin rolls from Denver began selling at a premium, not for what they contained, but for what they might point. 10 years removed from the original minting, the 2012 penny had evolved from loose change to legend. It became a case study in modern minting fallibility, a testament to how even today, in a world of automation and lasers, human oversight and error still play a role. Today, collectors still talk about the error year. The most valuable 2012 penny, the St. Louis cap, has yet to reappear. Some believe it changed hands quietly for an even higher figure. Daniel, though no longer as active online, continues collecting. He still has that first rim-cut penny. He keeps it in a small velvet box, not for its monetary value, but as a reminder, not all treasures glint gold. Some bear the scars of imperfection, hidden in plain sight. And sometimes, all it takes to uncover them is a little light, a patient eye, and the courage to question what everyone else assumes is ordinary. The 2018 Lincoln penny emerged from the presses like billions before it, copper-plated, zinc-ored, unimposing, and easily forgettable to the untrained eye. Minted primarily in Philadelphia and Denver, these coins carried the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield on the reverse, a design introduced in 2010. With over 5.3 billion pieces struck in Philadelphia alone and 4.9 billion from Denver, the 2018 cent joined the countless ranks of its kind, destined for vending machines, tip jars, and school lunches. On the surface, it was business as usual at the U.S. Mint, the kind of operation that ran on routine, where error was rare and perfection was the standard, or at least, that's how it seemed. Somewhere between the repetition of mechanical arms and the precision of dies striking blanks at hundreds of coins per minute, the machinery faltered. It wasn't a massive breakdown, nothing worthy of halting the process. It was smaller, more insidious, like a whisper in a room full of shouting. One die misaligned. A feeder stumbled. A press ran a little too long before a technician noticed the change. The result wasn't chaos, but a subtle, nearly invisible ripple. And among billions of pennies, this ripple might have vanished entirely, unnoticed, undocumented, and unappreciated, until it reached the hands of James Holloway, a collector from the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. James had been hunting errors for years, driven by the quiet joy of discovery, not by monetary gain. He was a purist, one of those who still visited banks weekly to request boxes of pennies and combed through them roll by roll. It was an unremarkable Thursday when he received a fresh box of 2018 D Rolls coins, so new they still gleamed beneath his desk lamp. He peeled open the first roll with a thumb calloused from years of handling copper. Most coins looked the same: sharp strikes, full steps, no signs of doubling or chips. But midway through the second roll, one penny stopped him cold. Something about it felt wrong. At first, it was just a feeling, the way the light refracted oddly across the surface. He lifted it with tweezers, careful not to touch the fields, and brought it under his 10x loop. There it was. Liberty was doubled. Not just a shadow or minor machine doubling. This was crisp, deliberate, and unmistakably part of the strike. The letters bulged as if echoing behind themselves. His heart thudded once, then twice. He flipped it over. The Union Shield appeared normal at a glance, but the horizontal lines across the shield were slightly blurred, as if struck twice at a subtle angle. James leaned back in his chair. He'd found something. But what? He checked online databases. Number 2018 double die had been confirmed in major references. No chatter among collectors. He posted high-resolution scans to a forum he'd frequented for over a decade. Within an hour, responses came in, cautious at first, then more urgent. One member compared it to a Class 4 double die, an offset hub doubling. Another thought it might be a misplaced die installation. Within 2 days, 2 more users came forward with similar coins. One from Utah, another from Texas. All 3 bore the same obverse doubling, with minor differences in severity. A pattern was forming, word spread fast. The coin, dubbed the 2018 Liberty Echo, began appearing in collector communities with increasing interest. Some were skeptical, assuming it was a result of machine doubling a common, less valuable phenomenon. But side-by-side analysis showed something different. This wasn't flat and shelf-like doubling. It had depth, clear separation, and rounded contours. It was real. PCGS confirmed the first specimen, designating it as a true double die obverse. The coin was graded MS66RD and listed in their database. The numismatic world took notice. Initially, examples sold modestly $30 here, $45 there. But scarcity bred curiosity. Even with more people searching, few new examples surfaced. A week went by, then a month. The total confirmed examples hovered around a dozen. That's when prices began climbing. One certified coin sold for $175 on eBay in an intense bidding war. Another reached $210 in a private sale. Collectors realized this wasn't just a minor variety, it was rare. James still had the original. He refused offers, even when one collector offered $500. For him, the coin was more than its value, it was a memory, a validation of years spent searching. But he watched the market closely. By 2020, the highest auction piece went for $620, stunning many who believed modern cents couldn't reach those heights unless struck on the wrong planchet or bearing catastrophic mint damage. The coin's value continued to evolve, driven by uncertainty. Would more be found? Was this a small die run, quickly corrected? Or had thousands slipped through, waiting in bank vaults or under car seats? That question fueled the fire. The fewer that appeared, the higher the stakes. Dealers began placing ads, offering premiums for raw 2018 D-rolls. Coin shows buzzed with speculation. Then, a twist no one saw coming. In mid-2021, a dealer from Arizona submitted a penny to NGC that bore similar doubling, only this time, it was on the reverse. The horizontal stripes of the shield were clearly doubled, a true DDR. At first, it was assumed to be unrelated. But microscopic analysis revealed matching die markers to the original obverse double die, fine cracks in the die, minute die gouges near Lincoln's shoulder. The implication hit hard. The same die pair had been used to strike at least one coin with a doubled reverse and a doubled obverse. It was unprecedented. A dual-sided double die in a modern coin wasn't just rare, it was nearly unheard of. The odds of a misalignment during hubbing on both dies, and those dies being paired together, were astronomically low. Experts debated whether this was a manufacturing fluke or a perfect storm of errors that had slipped through due to the sheer speed of modern production. The Arizona specimen became a legend almost overnight. It sold in a heritage auction for $3,200, an astonishing figure for a coin with a face value of 1 cent. But what made the story linger wasn't just the price, it was the possibility that more existed. Collectors redoubled their efforts, pouring through bags, rolls, and jars, hoping to find the next miracle. A few claimed success, mild versions, less pronounced doubling. Perhaps coins settled into a tight collector niche. High-grade examples routinely sold for $800 to $1,100, while lower grades still fetched respectable sums. But the mystique had evolved beyond dollars. The coin became a study in how error could still occur in an era of computer-controlled precision, how the human element, whether oversight or exhaustion, remained part of the minting process. And yet, the story refused to end. In 2024, a new wrinkle emerged. A Canadian numismatist attending a coin show in Vancouver noticed a 2018 D penny in a dealer's foreign coin bin. He purchased it for 20 cents, simply amused at its condition. Later, under magnification, he saw something astonishing. The coin bore no doubling, but the planchet was wrong. It rang differently when dropped, and its weight was slightly off. Metallurgical testing confirmed it had been struck on a brass planchet, likely intended for an overseas test coin or a transitional piece. Only one other 2018 U.S. cent had ever been recorded with this anomaly. It sold privately to a museum for $14,000. No one could explain exactly how it happened, why a non-standard blank ended up at the Denver Mint, and why it was used. But the message was clear. Even in an ocean of billions, there are still secrets. Still mysteries waiting in the change tray at the gas station, or the forgotten drawer of a desk. James, now older and less active, still keeps his Liberty Echo in a protective slab on his desk. He doesn't check the forums much anymore. He rarely buys new rolls. But sometimes, when the sunlight hits his desk just right, he picks up that coin and turns it slowly in his hand. A single penny. One of billions. But unlike any other, not because it's flawed, but because it whispers a story only a few have ever heard.